I didn't fully communicate the impact of Chevron last time we talked about it. So I have a little more detail to fill in. Oh, it's a Supreme Court case that probably affects all of us on the day-to-day even more than the Trump election stuff. Because this is about that fourth branch of government, the unelected experts that come in and affect all of us. That is, if you're in trucking, if you've ever had to deal with OSHA, if you've ever had to deal with COVID vaccines, we're going to get into all of the impact on how we just ripped out, gutted the state with this one Supreme Court case where we won, called Chevron. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. I bring you 3-4 videos a day and just bring the most important stuff that I think we need to be thinking about, talking about, really regarding the election and getting Trump elected. And of course, subscribe. Please join us. Here's Gianna. Great post. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, was busted because a secretary created literally 1,900 policies that were implemented as law. All 1,900 of the policies were removed. So there were, I think, 300,000 policies that ended up being removed over this one Supreme Court case. Just think of all the policies. And the most dangerous part was there was no recourse. In other words, they weren't held accountable by our normal jury and judge court system. And that's what Clarence Thomas in his statements were trying to push back on and say, these things need to be handled in a federal court. No, you cannot defer to the Chevron decision anymore. And that's the way it's been for 40 years. Now we're going to get, this is the actual fisherman who brought the case. Okay. This is Spike Cohen on Twitter. For those who don't understand what the Chevron defense is and why SCOTUS ended it, here's the long and short of it. A family fishing company, Loper Bright Enterprises, was being driven out of business because they couldn't afford the $700 per day they were being charged by the National Marine Fisheries Service to monitor their company. The thing is, the federal law doesn't authorize the National Marine Fishing Services to charge businesses for it. So the law didn't make them pass a law and say, hey, fishing boats are going to have to pay this, and we would have recourse for that because we would have lawmakers and people we could vote out of office. No, they just decided to start doing it in 2013. So imagine that. This is the National Marine Fisheries Service deciding that they should get $700 per day per fishing boat to have one of their experts on it. And then they make it mandatory. That's what Chevron allowed them to do. Okay. Now you're starting to see what can happen. And guys, this can happen everywhere. This can happen with every kind of safety issue. This can happen with environmentalism. If they can just go, you know what? If you're going to build in this area, we decided the Delta smelt was in danger. We decided this animal that's endangered. You have to pay this fine. You have to you have to offset this carbon footprint. If you don't use this filter on your car, catalytic converters and stuff, they can just start. So this affects every one of our lives every day. And now the authority is gone. That deep state, the fourth state, is gone. Why did they think they could get away with just charging people without any legal authorization? Because in 1984, in the Chevron decision, the Supreme Court decided that regulatory agencies were the, quote, experts in the field. And the courts could just defer to their interpretation of the law, relying on unelected experts. Bad decision, very bad. Came back to really bite us. And you might even say, you know what? I'm happy that we have cleaner air. Fine, you can get your cleaner air, but you can't do it illegally. This isn't how you do it. America won't let you do it. So for the past 40 years, federal agencies have been able to interpret laws to mean whatever they want, and the courts just had to go with it. It was called the Chevron Defense, and it put bureaucrats in charge of the entire country. It's how the OSHA was able to decide that everyone who worked for a large company had to get the jab or be fired. So this actually did go into medical practices. My daughter, who just graduated as a nurse and starting her job in nursing field, had to get the jab to stay in school. No law gave them the authority. They just made it up. That's why you and I never voted on it. It was never a vote. It just came top down. Everyone will do it. The schools will do it. The unions will do it. It's how the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, the ATF was able to decide that a piece of plastic, the bump stock, was a, quote, machine gun. And they could just start shutting you down. That was all also not voted on. Now, it's how the NCRS was able to decide what a small puddle was, quote, a protected wetland. So that affected all building. They would find small puddles, say this is a wetland. This is the amount of fine that you have to pay, or these are the amount of experts you have to have, or the amount of lawyers you have to have on your project you have to pay for that are our environmentalist lawyers. So that's the worst thing, is they got to find people whatever they want and have them pay their own side what they wanted. It's how out of control agencies have been able to create rules out of thin air and force you to comply. And the courts had to simply defer to them because they were the experts. Imagine if your local police could just arrest you for any reason and no judge or jury was allowed to determine if you'd actually committed a crime or not. It was just off to jail you go. Or in this case, this is the fine you have to pay. That's what the Chevron deference was. It was not only blatantly unconstitutional, it caused immeasurable harm to everyone. Thankfully, now it's gone. We haven't been able to feel the effects of this decision in the courts. It will be used for years to come to roll back federal agencies, and we'll all be better for it. And that's why politicians and corporate media are freaking out about it, saying your air is going to be polluted. You're going to die with guns. Now, here's the head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, when she was going, are we going to shut down the football league? Does that affect you? You know, what you want to watch for football? Are we going to shut them down over COVID? Listen how cavalier she is on her decision. This is not science, by the way. This is a lady going, should we shut them down or not?
Probably the person I called most was the Secretary of Health and Human Services in Massachusetts. She worked for a Republican governor but you know, when she was like, are you going to let them have professional football? And I was like, nope. And she's like, okay, neither are we. So
neither are we. Shut it down. Shut down professional football. Are you going to? No? Okay, neither are we. Just look at that. It's like they have all the power. They didn't have to answer to anyone. That's all there is. It doesn't matter what you think of COVID. You might totally believe everything. I'm fine with that. But you will understand that the way that they decided this is illegal in America.
You know, it was like conversations like that. So, or I'd be like, so when are you going to think about lightening up a mess? They're like, next Monday. I'm like, okay, next Monday.
Yeah, when are we going to lighten up on all this science? And they're like, next Monday, we're going to roll out some new science. It's like how, meanwhile, you know, just think of a single mom, you know, with 3 kids trying to keep her kids in school. They have it shut down. They're at home. They have masking mandates. Or you're a small business owner. That lady on that phone is the one dictating everything you're going to do. And there's no recourse. That's the only thing I'm saying. There should be a jury. There should be a trial. There should be laws passed. Now, here's the Duke of Milan on Twitter. This obliterates the Department of Defense vaccine mandate. So for the past 40 years, federal agencies have been able to interpret laws to mean whatever they want, and the courts just had to go with it. It was called Chevron Deference, and it put bureaucracies in charge of the economy. It's how OSHA was able to decide that you had to get the jab. That was how it was done. It was done through the Chevron Deference, and now it's gone, guys. That's the impact. This is probably the one Supreme Court case that probably affects most of us the most. And that's why it's important. That's why we're going to underline it one more time. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Doug in Exile.